Hey, my name is Bryce and welcome back to my YouTube channel, Jack O Trades. In today's video, we are going to go over my Fun Run MF-01X brushed speedrun car. So this is just for fun. It has no affiliation with any speedrun challenge that might be going on out there. So I've been plugging away on my real speedrun car, and for me it becomes quite frustrating to take the car out, run it for 2 minutes, and crash, and then have to go and spend another day or two rebuilding the car from scratch. So I needed something to distract me from this and having to think about, you know, how to go faster. And so I had these bins of parts for the MF-01X. I had hop-up parts, stock parts, you know, spares. But a lot of the parts I can't use on this chassis anymore because this is so custom at this point. So what I wanted to do was build up another MF-01X just as a fun run car. And try my hand at a brushed motor MF-01X. And so that's what we see here. When I built it up, I did some kind of shakedown runs, and I was running it on the Beetle body that I still have. And they actually turned out pretty good. I was getting 57 miles an hour somewhat consistently. And so then I decided I want to go ahead and paint up a body. And I had decided a long time ago that I wanted to, because I knew, you know, as I had this pile of parts that I wanted to build up another car. I was just kind of waiting for the time to do it. So I think it's an M-Class kit, either an M05 or an M06, but I had the Volkswagen bus kit, and this is a split window bus. I don't know what year it is. The split windows stopped in '67, that being the last year. I actually have a '69 bay window bus. But this is the iconic 23 window split window bus. And we'll get into the windows because the windows suck. Anyway, I have the body. It has a 239mm wheelbase. And I thought, how cool would it be to send a bus, which is basically shaped like a loaf of bread, down the road going 60 miles an hour. That being my goal, not really thinking I would get there because I was hitting 57 on this. To me, it does a really good job with their bodies and their decals. And so I got the bus and I started painting it. With the bus, you want to kind of go two-tone. White on top, color on bottom. I wanted to do green to match my real life bus, but I don't have any green paint, and this is kind of a one-day job where, you know, you wake up and say, hey, I'm going to paint a body today. So I had no prep on this, and it shows. There's little mistakes here and there. The paint is supposed to be kind of a brighter orange, but it's somewhat burnt looking because I screwed up on the order of operations for paint colors. And I actually didn't put enough orange down, so the black is kind of bleeding through, giving this burnt effect. The Jack O Trades is in paint, and the Life is RC, RC is Life is also in paint. And then we have all the Tamiya decals. The Tamiya decals are phenomenal on these kits. You know, I don't do a lot of Tamiya kits. I don't do a lot of kits in general. I do more custom stuff. But I really enjoy doing the decals to a degree. There are a lot of decals on this kit. My intent with this body was that it was going to be a speedrun body, so I didn't want to put a lot of time into it because I knew at some point the body would end up like this, where this has so much road rash that at some points it's actually almost burned through the body entirely. So I didn't want to invest a lot of time into a nice body that was going to look like this in the end, or even like this, where this guy has seen tons of tumbles, as we've seen in the previous videos. So I kind of kept it minimal, but I did, as I got into decals, I was having such a fun time with the decals and getting them to kind of fit perfectly. that I kept going and going and going, and then I got to the windows, and so I did the top windows up here with the trims, and then that's 8 windows, and then you've got 15 more windows around the perimeter, with each of these windows taking anywhere from 2 to 4 decals per window. And at that point I was like, nope, I'm out. So I stopped with the decals on the lower windows, and I also didn't paint the bumper. There's little details that you're supposed to paint on the bumper. And I said, you know, I'm going to run it, and if the body survives, then I will go ahead and finish it. And lo and behold, I'm actually done with my speed runs now. The body has survived. I made it through a couple of passes without crashing. I think I've hit the max speed that this car is going to do with this particular body. The body is really chintzy. It sits on these tall posts, and you know, you can see that there's not a lot of stiffness between the body and the car there, which may or may not be a good thing. Whereas on this car, I taped the body all along the perimeter to the chassis, and this thing is super solid. It's like a brick, and that helps kind of reinforce and make everything stiffer and more stable, almost like a monobody, but not so much with this guy. So life is RC, RC is life. This is Phil posted this on Facebook earlier this week, and it really resonated with me because I've been into RC ever since I was a kid in junior high, so I'm going on over 30 years now in RC. I've always been kind of a creator, doing my own thing, tearing apart my cars, making them what they're not supposed to be. And so this statement just resonates with kind of my outlook in RC, where it really is life for me, and it kind of keeps me grounded. So by trade, I'm a mechanical engineer. I work at a national lab in the Bay Area, California. I support fundamental sciences in that I develop and design systems, programs, and hardware for cutting-edge science. I also manage people, so I'm kind of lead engineer on projects as well as a team manager. I don't always have the time to get into the nitty-gritty of design, which is my true passion. And so with RC, I can really get into the design aspect of you know, using the CAD software, manufacturing the parts, whether it's 3D printed or machining it. But it's an outlet for me, and it kind of keeps those creative juices flowing, and it keeps me sharp in my skill set for my trade. Anywho, let's get into the bus. I want to kind of show you what I've done with it. So I'm going to go ahead and take the body off now. And then after this, we'll go and show the speed runs that we've done with it. Alright, so here's the car. It looks a lot different without the body on. So this is the stock chassis with a 239mm wheelbase. You can see next to my Class 3 car, it's significantly smaller, both in width and wheelbase. But it's just the nature of the beast. As I said before, this is a brushed car. I'm running a Trinity Cobalt 7x1, so 7 turn by single winding. It's a flat wire winding. I don't know anything about that. It's just kind of Trinity motor mojo. I picked up this motor last year after I saw that Nick was running one of these in his speedrun car, and I saw one pop up on eBay, so I picked one up. It's a nice motor. I don't think you can find them very easily. I'm trying to be careful not to grenade the motor. I'm watching out for motor temps. So even though this is a fun run car, I wanted to try to adhere to the Poor Boys RC Speedrun Challenge for the rules of a Class 1 car, which means that it's all off-the-shelf parts. In my case, since it is a fun run car, I had to use a couple of 3D printed parts. On the rear uprights, I didn't have a spare set of uprights, and you can't find these uprights in North America. There are a couple posted on eBay, but they're coming from overseas, and I'm just building with what I got, and so I didn't want to waste time buying and trying to wait on parts to show up, so I just used 3D printed rear uprights. I'm using a 3D printed antenna holder because I'm using those dual antenna receivers for my radio link transmitter. And then I have my little custom servo arm. Basically, I get rid of that servo saver by bolting on a carbon fiber dual link adapter to a standard aluminum servo arm. Other than that, it's all off-the-shelf parts. I am back to using my TRF shocks all around. I'm using a Mamba X. This is a brushless speed controller, but you can actually configure this for brushed. So I'm using this to drive my brushed motor, and then with the Castle Link Bluetooth adapter, you can program some parameters in this guy. Back to the standard battery, I'm using full-size stick pack 2S LiPo. So there are these M-class kind of upgrade or low pro, I forget what they call it. It's like a lowering kit for the M chassis, but they're carbon reinforced plastic arms. But one of the cool features is they have these, I'm gonna zoom in, they have these tabs here on the front and then here on the rear. And what that does is it allows you to adjust your ride height. Because you run a grub screw, or in this case I'm using button head screws in there, but that screw hits a point on the chassis, and then you can control your ride height of the vehicle by adjusting that screw. It also allows you to balance the loading on the wheels, where you can adjust the height so you have one wheel more engaged than the other, but you can balance so that each wheel sees the appropriate amount of weight. It's not necessarily balancing the car, but it is balancing the loading on the wheels by adjusting that ride height. And usually that tweaking is very small to balance it. So I am running the TL01 speed gear set, and I am in ludicrous mode at the moment with a 23 tooth pinion. The motor seems to be doing okay with that setup. So on the bench, when I went from standard mode to ludicrous mode, my wheel RPMs increased by about 10%. And I would expect to see a relative similar increase on the ground as well. When you get into like the 50s, I think aerodynamics becomes more of an exponential problem. So even though you're seeing a 10% increase on the bench, you're not going to see that on the ground because you're going to be hitting a lot more drag forces from aerodynamics. You know, it's a pretty straightforward build. I am running this BETU, I don't know how you pronounce it, it's BETU steering servo. It's actually, you know, it's a $30 servo, and I have another video kind of going over how to quickly swap out your steering servo. But it's a relatively inexpensive servo that has really good specs. It's got good speed, it's got good torque, it's got good deadbend. These are the three things you want in a speedrun car. And so for 30 bucks, this is probably the best bang for the buck in steering servos out there. I'll go ahead and post a link for that servo in the video description down below. So the car's not sitting super low, but with the body, I've kind of got it. The stance on it is pretty good. Let's see if I can get the body on. So, you know, the chassis itself is not sitting super low, but the body's pretty good. You know, I didn't hear a whole lot of body scraping on the ground as I was running. So I'm pretty happy with the stance of things right now. I am running my old foams. They've been trued and balanced again. I try to do that after every run now. It's just kind of part of the operation of things as you come back home and reset the car. So in the runs today, the car was really stable. I think the body actually helps a lot with that, because it seems like, based on some of the bodies that we've seen, and actually Chuck mentioned this as well in the conversation, you want bodies with nice flat panels. And what that is, to me, the way I imagine it, is it's analogous to having fins for stabilizing. You want these flat sides to kind of help keep that car cutting through the air, and like it basically creates a surface to help stabilize the car and make it want to go straight as it's going down the road. The disadvantage with this car being that it has a much larger frontal area where you have to push that air out of the way as you're going down the road. So, you know, the difference between these two cars is kind of night and day, where the frontal area on this car is about half of that of the bus. But the flat side panels help quite a bit on stability, because I had this car out there, you know, I drove this car and it felt very squirrely. And I think that's partially, I mean, it's got some flatness, but it doesn't have a lot of flatness, and it's kind of curve shaped, which I don't think helps very well, maybe, I don't know. But this just felt really stable, like it was on rails. And so, you know, I did some warm-up runs. I wasn't sure if I wanted to do a full throttle pass on the car, but it felt, I was comfortable enough where I went ahead and did 3 passes with the body, and no crashes. I didn't have a single crash with this body on, fortunately, because you know, the body is growing on me. Even though it's not perfect, it's really grown on me, and I like it, and I'm looking forward to having this hang out on the shelf. But it actually ran quite nicely. But I think I am at the limits of what this car is going to be able to do with the body and the motor and the battery that I'm running. And I'm not really, you know, this is a fun run car, so I'm not really looking at pushing it. I think I'm quite happy with how it ran today, and I'm gonna call it good and put it on the shelf. All right, before we get on to the speedrun footage, I just want to send a massive thank you to Philippe. A couple weeks ago, I had posted about not being able to get a hold of these parts here. I think it's the F parts tree, but it's the red parts that come with the MF-01X chassis. It includes the front uprights and steering knuckles, as well as the rear uprights. But I had posted not being able to get a hold of those. I was looking for alternatives, and he reached out to me and offered to send me his because he has upgraded his suspension to aluminum bits. And I offered to go ahead and pay for them, pay for shipping, whatever, but he was having none of that, and he sent them out on his own accord. So I really appreciate the support and the help with that. I actually ended up going a different route on my Class 3 car. I'm using the TRF 418 front uprights, and I'm using the 3D print on the rear. But the parts that Philippe sent me, I ended up using on this car, so they were a lifesaver in the sense that they got me going with this car. So thank you, Philippe, for those parts. They came in handy, and I really appreciate you going through the effort and cost of sending those out to me. Without further ado, let's go and check out the speedrun passes that we got with our brushed MF-01X fun run car. Thanks for tuning in and watching. Take care. Bye. That was a good run. Okay, stop, read. Whoo! We got it, 60 miles an hour with the VW bus body. All right, awesome. Brushed motor. Let's see what we got. Ooh, we got faster, 61 miles an hour.